Welcome. Hopefully you can hear me. It's popping. It's not doing this right. Hello, hello.
You're good. No, push that other one. There you go.
There we go. I don't know.
There we go.
There we go.
We're broadcasting regardless.
We're broadcasting, supposedly. Welcome to... Wow, that's really pitchy. Welcome to Prepper Talk Radio.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh. We need more hand signs to figure out what to do with these dials and buttons and switches and whatnots and who's-its and gadgets and gizmos galore. You're listening to Prepper Talk Radio here at K-Talk AM 1640. We are radio for the ready-minded, and thank you for listening in today. We've got another fun installment of our Gun Month. Love of Guns Month, I guess, but really it's not the love of guns, it's the love of freedom, right?
Amen. Amen.
And while there's been a lot going on in the news lately, and it's a tragedy, we're not going to discuss that in this show because we are not a political show. We're a preparedness show.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to talk today about handguns, handgun use, and we've actually got one of our really good friends in, Stan Prueitt from Urban Survivors, in-house, in-studio, not house, in-building, in-studio. Welcome.
Coming at you live.
I
do have a pulse.
He has a pulse, and he actually used to have his own show and did commercials and all kinds of fun stuff in New Mexico.
In New Mexico, back in my radio days, way back in the 80s when I had hair.
In the 80s when you had hair? So that's when you lost it, in the 90s.
No, I started losing it way before then.
Way before then?
Yep.
Well, the 90s were hard on a lot of us. I was in high school then. It was painful. Well, we won't talk about it.
I still had most of my hair back then.
You still had most?
Not so much anymore.
Mine's just going gray rapidly now. My beard is flowing with grayness.
I love it. I love the gray.
I don't know if I'm ready for it.
Makes you wise, old sage.
That's right.
Wise old sage. Well, the problem is I'm more of a wise guy than a sage.
Amen. I agree.
So, well, today, Stan, let's give a little background on Stan. Stan, you were with the state police in New Mexico.
Correct.
You also did...
Okay, so
give me your background, because I'm hitting a blank all of a sudden.
Yeah, so just a background, going way back to high school. Well, even before high school, the teachers nicknamed me the Peacemaker. And it was always my job to stop the fights. I got in more fights trying to defend kids who were getting picked on. So that started my martial arts love and my martial arts career. Then, of course, after college, I went into business. I was a self-entrepreneur, still in the martial arts. Then I worked at Los Alamos National Labs in the weapons program. And being an efficiency expert and project manager kind of guy.
And wrote classified materials.
And I wrote books and classified materials. Really boring stuff. Yeah.
The most exciting and engaging things to read.
Yeah. Ever. So then, working for the federal government, you work 410s, so you have every Friday off. And on the side, I ran this martial arts training center called Urban Survivors, where we trained law enforcement in hand-to-hand combat and in how to use of force, things like that. I thought, what better way to make sure that this stuff works than to become a police officer? And working for the federal government, you have 410s. So I put myself through the police academy there, and New Mexico has one of the most rigorous police academies on the planet. Boy, if you are a New Mexico state trooper, don't mess with them. Anyways,
good to know.
Yeah, so anyways, from that, on my Fridays and weekends and days off, I would go down to my district, and I worked as a police officer, got in a patrol car, and did all sorts of fun things. We're in drug raids, worked in the drug wars, great times. All while still training people in hand-to-hand combat and tactical martial arts. And
you're a practitioner of 13 different martial arts, or is it more than that now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
because I know you've kind of drilled it down to practical movement, things that actually work.
Correct.
In fact, you actually taught our church group just this last week. For those of you who are not in Utah, we'll just use generic terms. Church group for the women. They had a get together, and you taught them basic self-defense moves, how to defend against chokes, against hair pulling, against fight. Attackers from the front, the side, the rear. It was amazing. And afterwards, the common consensus was, wow, I didn't know it was actually that easy to do this.
It can be, yes. The point is that, so background, I've got, before I stopped getting the black belts, I was kind of collecting them like Cheerios box tops, and hey, if you get 9 black belts, you can be a grandmaster. Ooh. But no, so
You're going for that title.
Yeah, so I got 6 black belts in different styles, but the point is that when you mix them together, you pull all the best to the system, and so basically, based on the philosophies of Jeet Kune Do, you strip away all that's useless.
Bruce Lee.
Focus on
Bruce
what,
Lee's.
yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
you focus on what works, and we even tailor it to what works for you. There's many of my students who are not as physically fit and able. I have one gentleman who walks with a cane, so we taught him a lot of cane techniques. Yeah, he can't do any flying, jumping kicks and things like that, but he can still be a very effective element in defending himself, and
Fantastic.
that's what we focus on.
Well, I think that's the key, is giving people the confidence by giving them the training. And that's going to lend really easily into today's conversation topics. I mean, talking about close quarters, talking about the use of deadly force with a handgun. A lot of people will go and they'll get their CCW, and I applaud you, but do not stop there. Most people do, and they say, well, I've got it now, I can start carrying. And they say, well, I've got all this range time, and it's great. And what you said in the hall before we came in here was probably the most apropos thing I've heard in a long time, is how many paper targets have ever
killed anyone.
Killed anybody.
Yeah, I don't know of many silhouettes that have actually jumped out and attacked anyone. And so, kind of backing up a bit, you think about it, and those are, a handgun is only a tool. You are the weapon. But so many people think that, hey, I've got my concealed carry permit, I carry a gun. It's this invisible force field that protects me, and I am overconfident, and I am surely going to get into trouble when the schmuck actually hits the fan.
Well, yeah, let's be realistic. Is with the handgun, to me, is kind of the starting platform. Kind of like a piano. When you learn the piano, you can learn other instruments more easily, right? So when you learn and master the handgun, then you can not only shoot other platforms more comfortably and more accurately and more efficiently, but it also, like you say, it does give you that confidence, but only if you have that training and you have that experience. And carrying a handgun is like an evolution. For me, it's been an absolute evolution from when I got my concealed carry. I was, of course, very nervous at first to carry, and then it was just went from there to where, I kind of almost feel uncomfortable not carrying and not having that tool on me.
But the thing is though, don't think that it's the stopgap or it's the one key that's going to open up all your doors. Right. Once again, it is only a tool, and if we see, if you see all your problems as a nail, then the hammer is the tool for you. However, when do you deploy that weapon? When do you use it? I mean, if some guy's just being verbally abusive, do you have the right to pull out your gun? Now, in some states, you have the right to brandish. But once you unholstered that, you have now stepped onto an entirely new platform of threat level, and so you've just escalated things to a deadly level. And there are a lot of us that train to take those away from you, and so people ask me all the time, Stan, you never show up to a gunfight with a knife. Well, yes, I do.
Yeah.
So my rules for a gunfight is that always bring a knife, because a knife will never malfunction. It never needs to reload. So carry a knife. And carry a gun, and a backup, and some extra mags, and you're friends with guns, and one of your buddies at high elevation with a sniper rifle. That's how I enter a gunfight.
That's what I keep missing. I don't have a buddy at high altitude elevation with a shot.
But I wanted to revisit what you said at first. Is you started out in your career as being the peacemaker,
right?
And that's one thing we're not seeing so much anymore. Like the good old Andy Taylor, right? Sheriff Andy Taylor. He was the peacemaker. And that's what I think we're missing a lot nowadays. Not just in the law enforcement community, but overall. The best way to win a gunfight is not to get in a gunfight, right?
The first rule of self-defense is don't be there.
Yeah.
If you can avoid it at all costs, do so. But that's the problem that we live in nowadays, is that people are overconfident. They've got a gun and they see something going down. Instead of removing themselves from the situation, they project themselves into this situation, and then things escalate and people get hurt.
And they don't have the experience to deal with it properly.
Right. Again, the people ask me all the time, so Stan, if you see an active shooter in a mall, what are you going to do? And I say, well, here in Utah, I'm going to take cover. Why? Well, because there's about 45 other people standing around with concealed carries, and they're all too excited to pull that thing out, going, now's my moment. I must draw my weapon. I've been waiting a lifetime for this. And so there's going to be 45 guys unloading and emptying their magazine without the thought thinking, you are responsible for every single bullet you pull out of that gun.
And understand the word cover. The cover is something that actually will stop a bullet, not just conceal you.
Yeah. You can't just hide behind the bush by the fountain.
It's not covered.
It's not going to work.
Yeah. Right.
But I think going back a step, it's the de-escalation of a situation that I think more people need training on.
That requires real skill.
That is the thing, and it goes back to morality, right? Valuing human life, valuing people. Everybody has a value. And in our current society, in our current way things are going, we're stripping that value away, right? Our hearts are failing us. Our compassion for other people is failing us. You know, we see somebody on the side of the road panhandling, and we think all too often, wonder what that guy did. Why is that guy wasting his life right there? And we shouldn't be judging that, but if we can help, we should find a way to help. You know, there's food banks, there's other opportunities, there's people that you can assist in life.
Well, you've kind of pinged on a point in our society that, you know, when you look at Hollywood and you look at the movies we watch, you look at all the TV shows, how many TV shows are people pulling out a gun to solve their problems? You know, the babysitter's late, draw your gun, right? You know, that's almost to the point we're getting to. Not, you know, it's not that far-fetched.
Yeah.
It's so we think that this is going to solve all of our problems, and it's not. Even if you are projected into a combat situation, you know, even say you are walking down the street and you were assaulted, what are your options? So I always follow the rule, you know, and most people walking around the world with their cell phones, they're so distracted, they're not paying attention, they are victims ready-made. So there are predators in our society that are going to go out there and look for trouble and look for the victim to pick on. And so you have to have that observation, that surveillance. You've got to be always aware. You have to have the situational awareness. And I live by UDA. You're probably familiar with that. UDA. Observe, orient, decide, and act. Constantly observing. So if something's going down, observe. What's going on? What are the situations? Who's all involved? Where are the parameters? Where's my escape routes? You know, what do I need to do? And then from there, you know, orient. Where am I? You know, what are my egresses? What are my abilities to move forward, to move back? And then, of course, you've got to make that decision. What do I need to do? Do I engage? Do I retreat? And then, of course, action. Now, of course, in the movie the Bourne Identity and the Jason Bourne movies, what a perfect example of UDA. He doesn't just run into every situation, guns ablazing, and, you know, he does exactly that. He observes. He gathers information. He's grabbing maps off the wall, you know, a fire extinguisher here. He's looking where the exits are. He's grabbing all this information. He orientates himself and then says, now this is what I'm going to do. And then he acts. And then when he acts, he is totally dedicated. You know, there's no if, and, or buts.
Yeah,
He's committed.
there's no question what route he's going down, whether it's escaping and evading, whether it's engaging, whether it's deflecting. It's very... It's an honest
decisive
movement, right? It's decisive. Here's what I'm going to do, how I'm going to do it.
And I think for most of us, that if we're not trained, we don't have to practice and have this mindset, then our first decision should be, okay, something's happening, I'm going the opposite direction.
Right. Don't be there. But if you do have to engage, then you have to be prepared. Now, the next thing is part of that orientation is how close are they? So many people. And if I had $1 for every time someone said this to me, they said, oh, I carry concealed, so if someone attacks me, I'm just going to shoot them. I'm just going to shoot them. If I had $1 for every time someone said that to me. But no, the problem is that you have to have the time and distance to draw. And so when you look at police officers, when police officers are in real fight situations, their first shot is only 11% accurate. What's yours?
Well, we're going to pick this topic up right after the break. We're running into the bumper. Stay tuned, guys. You're listening to Prepper Talk Radio here at K-Talk. Radio for the ready-minded. Well, welcome back to Prepper Talk Radio. Radio for the ready-minded. Scott, Shane, and Stan here today. And before we jump back into our topic, I have a practical tip of the day.
Perfect.
So we're going to try to do this every Friday. Forgive us if we ever miss it. But today, it's my turn, and I've been waiting on this one for 2 weeks because I got hijacked last week. And it's every prepper loves duct tape, right? Every man loves duct tape. If you ever watch the Red Green Show, you know duct tape is vital for life. But you can fix just about anything with it. So with that in mind, I take duct tape and I wrap it around every lighter I have.
Okay.
So I'll have about 3 to 4 feet of duct tape on every lighter. And then additionally, I'll wrap it also around my pill bottles. So I take old pill bottles, I empty them out, and I put coins in them. And then I also put cash, enough so it stacks it down so you don't hear the coins move. But then I wrap that in 2 to 3 feet of duct tape, sometimes 4 or more if I can. But I utilize that as one of my everyday carry devices, or I shouldn't say everyday carry, but in every bag I have, whether it's a get-home bag or a escape bag or whatever you want to call it, bug-out bag, whatever your vernacular, I put those in there because then I have an additional stash of cash, additional use of duct tape, and those pill bottles can be used in so many different ways.
And I prefer the Gorilla Tape, actually.
Gorilla Tape. I'm not saying a specific brand.
But yeah, no, okay, absolutely. The duct.
Gaffer's Tape's pretty dang amazing, too, if you've used that. That stuff, holy crap, that's strong stuff.
So yeah, get creative in your preps.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be high cost. There's so many things that you end up throwing away that if your brain is working and you're thinking about it, hey, I could use that for something else. And that's where you become a hoarder, right?
So always be using the things that you have and rotating them out. So that's our tip of the day. Now, back to our previously scheduled topic. We just started talking about close quarters and the use of a firearm. I want Stan, tell us a little bit more about the time not to use that firearm. We talked a little bit about the 21-foot rule in the break, but meaning that if someone's 21 feet or closer, drawing on them and actually acquiring that target in the time that they can get to you, you're not going to be able to hit them. That's something I learned in my CCW class.
Very low percentage, yeah.
Well, at least not enough to stop them in most cases.
Yeah,
unless
so
it's a kill shot on your first shot, and even then you're only 11% likely to hit them, and that's if you're trained like a SWAT member or police officer.
Right. So you look at the statistics of attacks and how attacks evolve. If someone's going to attack you, they're not going to be standing outside of your 20-foot radius and saying, "Be prepared, I am about to attack you. Defend yourself." They're not
Right.
going to give you a warning. In fact, most assailants are going to attack when they're close up and personal, and you may never see that knife and you may never see that weapon or their bare hands. You may just get clocked, and that goes back to the first thing: observe your situational awareness.
I just saw a video of security footage of two, I guess, bouncers at a club, and they're having an argument just outside the door, and this guy pulls a knife, stabs them both before they even realize, oh man, I got stabbed. I mean, they weren't being observant enough or being cautious enough that this guy was going to stab them.
Well, even when you are, my time in law enforcement has taught me that even when you are on a high level of alertness, things can happen. I've been attacked many times while on duty by people with knives, and it happens so fast, and you're already at a high level of alert. You're at a traffic stop, and all of a sudden the door pops open, and the guy comes out with a knife, and he's going to stab you. Well, here on my belt, I have OC, a taser, a baton. I've got a pistol, and then in the car I've got a AR and a shotgun. But what do you have time to do? You don't have time to pull out a pistol or a weapon and try and defend yourself. You have to use your hands or your feet.
You have time to step back.
You have to know how to react. So many people who think, well, I carry a gun, I'm safe. You're wrong. It's a myth. You are going to get hurt.
It's a myth perpetuated by a lot of poor trainers, but more than anything, TV, media, and our favorite, Hollywood. Right? Hollywood has infiltrated everything because it's an entertainment value. People think that that's possible or that that's how things should be, and that's not even remotely
But let's
true.
get this straight. You're not discouraging people from carrying or going and taking that initiative and getting the training and carrying a firearm.
Right. Get your CCW, but then come to a place like ourselves, urbansurvivors.com. Boy, that was a shameless plug.
Hey, we approve. We approve.
So what we do is we train how to use it. Now, standing up there against a paper target is one thing. Now, you don't take into account when you're at the range practicing drawing over and over and over again, you don't take into consideration your level of adrenaline. And so a lot of times when you want operators, when you train operators, you put them under duress so that they know how to function in an adrenaline situation. So think that's going to slow you down. You're going to lose your fine motor skills. You better know how to defend your weapon, make the time and distance, and then draw if you need to. But yeah, you can't say enough about you are the weapon. Learn how to use you.
And you know, you hear in the movies, oh, their training kicked in, right? And that's absolutely true. Is when your heart starts beating and your brain's not thinking, it has to be automatic. You have to have trained that many times. And how many times and repetitions does it take to make that into
to make it proficient?
So what happens is, especially in the martial arts, when you do some sort of tactic 1,500 times, it becomes muscle memory.
There we go.
If you do it about 15,000 times, it becomes reflex memory. And that's where you want to be. For example, that one attack, when the guy attacked me and tried to stick me in the neck with a knife, reflex memory kicked in, and I was able to disarm. I threw him to the ground, slammed him, cuffed him up, and then I realized, wow, that just happened. You know, you don't think about it when it's just happening.
Yeah.
And you don't have time to think about it. You've got to react. So that's the mindset you've got to have, is don't think that the gun is some protective force field. You've got to know when and how to deploy it, and you've got to know how to defend it so that somebody doesn't take it from you.
But is that realistic for the average person to be able to become that proficient? Or so, if not, what's your advice?
Well, let me counter with this question. You're carrying a gun, shouldn't you be?
Yes.
Because, like, back to my mall situation, if I'm in a mall, I want to take cover because there's a lot of untrained yahoos out there who are going to pull it out, pull their gun out, and start emptying the magazine into whatever. And after, when the crime labs come in and they're going through this situation, they're going to be pulling all those bullets out of the walls or out of the innocent bystanders.
And putting a name on them.
And they will put a name on it through forensics. And you will lose your gun. They will take your gun and they'll confiscate it to do the work on it, the forensics on it. Thank you. And you may lose it up to 6 years. I've seen some people not get their gun back for 6 years while it's in evidence and in forensics. So, OODA.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the other problem is okay, if there is a shooter situation and there are 45 other people with CCWs and 2 or 3 of them jump in thinking, oh, I'm going to help, how many people are going to identify that other person as maybe a second gunman or a third gunman?
Correct.
Yeah, and absolutely. That's the issue that we have is we don't fully know. We can't fully observe and figure out exactly what's going on if everyone's drawing and everyone's trying to retaliate.
This is where we get to that verbal judo. Yeah. You've got to be verbal. You've got to, when you draw, and you've got to identify yourself of who you are, especially for the cops when they show up on scene. When they hear that, hey, there's a shooter, they show up.
Or
they're
multiple shooters?
Yeah, they're looking for a guy with a gun. And if you happen to have a gun, you could get shot.
And you will be on the ground regardless.
So best thing to do is constantly identify during the firefight, after the firefight, put your gun down or holster it. Make sure your hands are visible when law enforcement shows up. Have your ID ready and out so that you're not having to reach into your back pocket to pull out a wallet. Because when the cops show up, they are antsed.
Hyper alert.
They are ready to go. And any wrong moves out of you could riddle you into Swiss cheese.
We don't want that happening.
So when it comes to that close quarters situation, when it comes to dealing with these types of events, you've got knife fighting training, you've got hand-to-hand combat training, and you provide that. I've actually been to quite a few of your classes, and that has given me more confidence for my wife than myself because I've done a lot of the training beforehand. But your training has been actually easier to adapt and easier to apply. And for that, I'm very thankful. My wife has actually taken me down a few times using the training. We've bought plastic guns.
You're a big guy.
I'm a big guy. I'm pushing 300. And she's definitely around the 150s range, so she's tiny compared to me. And she looks very unassuming. She didn't look tough. She's not a dainty flower either. She's a beautiful flower. But she can clean my clock because of the things that she's learned from you. And we bought plastic guns and holsters, and we'll actually practice disarming each other. We haven't done it in a while,
really?
but we were doing it for a while. And she got really good and actually messed up my finger for a while because I was being dumb. And I was like, bang, bang. And she's like, bam, Stan told us not to do that. And I was like, yeah, I know. That really hurt. But the key is practice, practice, practice. And you can't practice until you've been taught by somebody. In a close quarter situation, I'm a little more confident now, but I would still prefer to not be there, right? Never be engaged in those situations if I can. How do, when your students get in those types of situations, how do they typically respond?
So that's the thing. You don't have the option to retreat when you're in your own house or your castle, as we call it. So in an attack, home invasion, things can go wrong really quick. So just like we do with our family, we practice with the kids having fire alarms. A couple times a year, I say, I push the fire alarm. I know this sounds kind of weird, but hey, we're preppers. We got to be prepared. Hit the fire alarm, and we all practice how do you evacuate the house. Same thing with a home invasion. You've got to know what to do and how to do it, and you don't want to get in trouble and be untrained. 70% of the people who defend themselves in their homes with a knife out of the kitchen drawer, because you see that in Hollywood. I heard a scary sound. They go to the kitchen drawer, grab the big old butcher's knife.
Let's go find that sound.
Yep, so 70% are going to end up with that knife stuck out of them. So yes, of course, UDA still applies. You're observant, you hear noise or something's in the house. Of course, contact law enforcement. But now the clock is ticking. You have 5 to 15 minutes that you have to defend your castle on your own. Yep. So you either have to be trained to know where everyone retreats to, and then you shelter in place, lock the doors, and wait. Or if you're a parent and you have kids in other rooms or even down in the basement, you have to know how to properly clear that room. There was, I won't say where, this happened just 3 years ago. It was Saturday morning at 11 o'clock. A woman was in her house. She was in the bathroom showering. I mean, this sounds like a movie setup, doesn't it?
This was local.
This was local. And she was showering, and she felt like, I'm not alone. So she pulled the curtains back, and there was a man standing in her bathroom Saturday morning, 11 o'clock. She screamed. Her husband woke up, jumped out of bed. The perp ran and took off running down the street. The husband chased him down the street as far as he could till he never caught the guy. And the guy's still never been apprehended.
Oh, wow.
When he came back, the wife was on the phone with the police. They're not there yet. They looked in the backpack that the guy had dropped.
Oh, yeah.
And they found all sorts of bondage, SMs, handcuffs and torture devices in the backpack. So think about it,
He was prepared.
Yeah.
Are we? Right? That's the question. Are we prepared? It doesn't matter what you're wearing at the time of those situations. You've got to respond. You've got to act.
Then you think of weapons of opportunity. We have videos on weapons of opportunity, and so you've got to look for those weapons because, yes, we don't all carry our holster into the shower, but think of how many weapons there are in the bathroom. I mean, go wherever you go in the house today, I challenge you to walk around and say, how many weapons are there? Keys, coffee mugs. Oh, coffee mugs are great weapons. You hold the coffee mug with the handle on the outside, so it's like brass knuckles.
Oh, yeah.
And so when you hit someone, especially if it's porcelain, you hit someone a couple times with that, of course the handle's going to break, but that's the benefit because now the handle's a sharp, jagged edge, and now you have a puncture weapon. So coffee mugs, magazines. One of my friends was a law enforcement officer in Washington during some of the riots. And he went in there with a magazine. And I said, why just a magazine? He said, well, it's unassuming, but if you roll that puppy up real tight.
Jason Bourne does that.
Stuff it right into someone's sternum. Yeah, you'll drop them quick. He did. He dropped 2 guys with a magazine. Now, I recommend very manly magazines, 4-wheeler,
hot rod
gun,
magazine,
hot rod. Yeah. Well, actually, Cosmopolitan is a pretty thick magazine. It could probably
I was like, a National Realtor magazine was what I've got on my desk at home. So you have to be adaptive. You have to think of alternatives. Practicing escape routes in the house because sometimes it's better to just get out.
Well, so think about it this way: the perpetrator is always, we hear about the Pearl Harbor attack on the U.S. by the Japanese. It was a surprise attack. Think about it. Every assailant out there is the Japanese. They have prepared for this. They know what they're doing. They know what they have done. They've got it premeditated. They are going to attack you. While we're walking around in a totally defenseless zone, most people are what they call zone white. They're unassuming. They're distracted by their cell phone. They're not paying attention. And here comes this attacker who's at level orange or red. And he's coming towards you. And you're in white zone. You are going to be behind the 8 ball constantly.
Yeah.
So you have to walk around life. And I don't mean to be paranoid, but you have to walk through life in a yellow condition where you are ready. You're observant. You're not distracted by your cell phone. You're always looking for what could be the possibilities of something bad happening. Once again, I don't mean to be paranoid, but
nowadays,
and it's not paranoia. It's just being alert, being awake.
It's ready-minded.
It's ready-minded. There's so many people that I talk to that say, "Oh, well, you're just paranoid." Paranoid about what? I'm not concerned. My fear level is at an all-time low, and that's getting less and less fear every year of my life because of training, because of education, because of daily alertness.
Preparation brings confidence, and preparation brings readiness. And being a prepper, you try and be ready for whatever. Whether it's a food shortage, economic collapse, or a natural disaster, or a bunch of zombies walking down the street.
Yeah,
and we all kind of hope for that, don't we?
We kind of do.
Deep
I know
inside,
you do.
We're all hoping for a zombie apocalypse. It's like,
I'm not really eager about a zombie apocalypse so much.
Well, if you're a sniper,
gross.
you got a sniper rifle.
What you don't see in the movie, or what you don't experience through the movies and through
smell-o-vision.
Yes, that's exactly where I was going. You don't know how, rotting corpses chasing you. That's gotta reek so bad.
True.
Yeah.
I thought about that.
So you're always making sure you're upwind of whatever you need to be upwind of, and because being downwind of that's gotta stink so bad. At least you can smell them coming if you're downwind.
Well, that's what drives me nuts in these zombie movies is how do they always get surprised by the zombies?
That's true.
Can't you smell them?
Well, and are they really stealthy? Like
They're ninja zombies.
ninja zombies? Like, come on.
Or
really?
they're overly fast. They're way too, like I Am Legend, right? They're just way too fast.
Mm-hmm.
Or
that's-
World War Z. That
Yeah.
just makes
my
no sense to me.
favorite, of all the zombie type movies is the Romeo and Juliet version. Have you guys
There we
seen,
go. Yep.
Warm Bodies?
I haven't seen that one.
That movie is awesome. And there's two different types of zombies in it.
Hey, when there were sparkling vampires, I said that's enough. I clocked out of society for a while.
I agree.
Well, we're bumping our break, so we're going to continue this conversation on the other side. Take a minute and listen to our sponsors. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our third and final segment of the day of Prepper Talk Radio, radio for the ready-minded, with Scott Shane, and today we've got Stan Prueitt in the house from Urban Survivors, LLC. You can find them at urbansurvivors.com.
Mm-hmm. Or on Facebook, Urban Survivors on Facebook, or
on YouTube. This is where you can glean a lot of really good information. Now, I'm going to bash you for a second.
Go ahead, bash.
The video quality is not production style. Like I'm telling you.
Quality.
Hey,
It's-
trying to keep it low key.
But it's the content that matters, and that's the beautiful thing is I actually watched your video where it talked about close quarters and when to draw and when not to draw and how to protect your firearm, your sidearm. And you just kept telling the guy, okay, attack me however you want to, and sometimes you turn away from him, sometimes you'd stand right towards him, and in every scenario, see exactly what you did to defend and keep that sidearm from becoming a weapon against you.
So there are people, bad guys, who train on taking your gun. They look for the bulge, and the best time for them to take it is when they're in close, they make a gesture, and they want you to draw. That is when your gun is coming out, that is the most opportune time to take it. And it's very embarrassing when you get shot in the head by your own gun.
I don't know that I'd remember that kind of embarrassment, but everyone else would, I would assume.
Be a
Oh, that
nice
guy got
legacy to
shot in the
leave
head with his
behind.
own gun.
Yeah, but so that's the thing is that you have to know. So I teach a whole class on weapons retention. We did this for law enforcement. Now, law enforcement has an advantage. In your Sam Browns or your utility belts, you have level 2 or level 3 holsters are required. Level 2 is that there's 2 safety mechanisms keeping the pistol in place. Level 3 is that there's 3. So, like mine, I have a level 2. It's a snap, rock forward, and then you can draw it. So if somebody just grabs it and starts yanking on it, it's not coming out. However, concealed carry, you don't have such luxury. Most people have not even a snap over it. It's ready for quick draw. Well, it's ready for quick draw with anybody else. And so in some of the videos we've done, you can see how easy it is for anyone to kind of notice the bulge and just walk up to you and take your gun and either pistol whip you or shoot you with it. And that's embarrassing. So we do a class on how to retain that weapon and then when to draw. Because like I said, when the gun is out and it's in your hand and you're not on target, they can take it. Now, also some of the videos we've done is that we've done a lot of training. Now, I've done this hundreds of times with police officers and civilians and contractors. Oh, this reminds me of the good old days when I used to do contract training at Soldier of Fortune convention. That's another topic. Anyways, these French Foreign Legion guys are intense, man. I imagine. Anyways, another story, another day. Anyways, so the point is that in some of the videos, what we've done in this training is that we will stand 12 feet away from a person who has a pistol drawn on you at high ready. So they're in their typical isosceles stance, pointing a gun at you, and I will have a rubber knife hidden behind my back, and 4 out of 5 times I will kill them before they get their shot off.
Theoretically kill them.
So remember, there's
Soldier of Fortune, they're dead. It's real. I'm kidding.
Yeah, but there's the law of reflexes. My uncle taught me this when I was much younger. When I was in my college days, I paid for my college being on an old West gunfighting troupe.
That's right.
I remember that.
I was a stunt man, and I thought, hey, this is great, man. I make $10 an hour stunt pay. I got bottles broken over my head. I got to fall off buildings and off cliffs and stuff like that, and we'd shoot these guns. You know, they're black powder guns.
So you learn the error of your ways, and now you're an efficiency expert.
Yeah.
No bottles, no gun. There you go.
So anyways, he taught me quick draw. And so the old West gunfights that you see on Hollywood, where they both, they stand, they stare at each other, and then the good guy is so fast that he waits for the bad guy to draw, and then he draws and shoots the guns out of his hands. Well, I'm sorry. The law of reflexes is that if you move first, fast, and with force, you're going to beat him every time. It's not, I'm going to wait for him to draw.
Because I'm the good guy, right?
Right. So think about it. When someone has that pistol pointed at you, if I move first, fast, and with force, their brain has to receive that information, devise their reaction, and then process it, and then engage. And so while I'm moving in to stab them, because I've already pre-processed this, I already know what I'm going to do. I'm already in execution while they're still in observation mode, right? And then there's that quick decision. They're still doing UDA, but much faster. And then by the time they pull that trigger, I'm already into them, and there's a knife sticking out of the throat. And so if you hit in the triangle spot, the sweet spot on the neck, it's a kill. It's a target-rich environment. You have veins, arteries, spine, windpipe. Yeah.
He paints a pretty picture, doesn't he?
I know. I'm grateful this isn't a movie or television. Thankful for radio today. We're not doing any graphic depictions. We're just talking, so thankful for that as well. If we had a slideshow presentation, I'd probably be in the corner hurling a little bit. Thankfully, I'm not. So we're good. Let's continue on. I want to retract a little bit. We started talking about before the break, kind of castle, when you're in your own castle.
Yeah. My question was, and when you started talking about this, okay, where can a regular person like me, where do we start? We get our handgun, we get our concealed carry permit, or not. I mean, we open carry, whatever it might be. Where do we start from there? I mean, what's the next step we would take to say let's start with the castle,
defending our home.
Defending our home. What's the next thing we start with defending our home? Where do we need to learn?
So really good thing. Well, if it's Hollywood, you go into the closet with all the scary clown dolls.
Right.
No, but if it's reality, you have multiple options. Option number one is that if you're by yourself in that home and you don't have anyone else to defend, and someone's in your house, the best form of maneuvering an attack is get out of the castle. You don't want to be in a corner, right? So think of military strategy. A guy in a castle could be surrounded by bad guys and then starved out, or they start chucking rocks and fire bombs into your castle, and you just have to stay there and take it, right? Not a great way of defense. The best of defense is to get out and be maneuverable so that you can work the angles, and that's a whole other class there, how to laterally move and how to use the angles. So if you're in a house and somebody does break into your house, if you're close to an egress, go for it.
Just get out.
Get out, and then you pick the place where you set up your counter ambush while you're on the phone to the cops. So cops are coming. If you're in the backyard, let the cops know through dispatch, I'm in the backyard. I've got a beat on the house. Anything comes out the back door, I've got him. You take the front. Why not? Kind of self-direct what's happening. Cops love that information. I've been on so many, violent situations where you come to a house, you have no idea what's going on. Let me tell you one story. We show up at this house, and the man is deranged. He's got a gun. He tried to kill his wife and his kid. We show up, And so we, wait for backup. We stack up on the front door. We make a dynamic entry into the house. He's not there. He's moved out into the backyard. Well, the backyard happened to be a junkyard. It's pitch black. Once again, I forgot my night vision goggles. And the last thing I want to do is turn on my flashlight and walk around this junkyard.
Right here I am.
Yeah. So who suddenly had the edge?
Yeah.
Oh, he
did.
completely does.
So back to, if you're the good guy and you have a chance to get out of the house, put the odds in your favor. That sounds like a movie. Put the odds forever in your favor.
You
Get
turn
the
it
heck
from-
out of the house, set up your counter ambush, and now you are the one in control. See, the thing about criminals is criminals are all about power. They want control. It's a control. Same with sexual crimes. Sexual crimes, it's all about control and power. If you can immediately contradict that in their psyche, you now have the edge in combat. The people who survive combat are the people who thrive under chaotic situations. They're the ones that are kind of one step ahead. So once again, don't play in their court. He's breaking into your house because he has evil plans, and he's planned this all out. He's got it all figured out. You now change it. You go out, and now he's the afraid little boy inside the house, and he's going,
Exactly.
crap, I've got to get out of this house.
Yeah.
I'm trapped.
You are on the defense, and then you turn yourself onto the offense.
Offense is the best
where you
form
wanna
of
be. Yep.
defense.
Offense
Right
is best
now,
defense.
that may not be an option if you have kids. Right? So
Yep.
you will have to, they will have a safe place.
They're all over
to go.
the house, different rooms in the house.
Yep. So that's when you, as the parent, will have to have them taught how that they can find safe place in their house, as you and your spouse clear the house, and that's where the training comes in.
Yep.
How do you clear the house? Last year, PrepperCon, we had the shoot house, and we trained over 100 couples in room clearing,
Yeah.
which was a blast. They had fun, we had fun. I got to be the bad guy. I put on a big padded suit. We had airsoft guns, and I had a rubber knife or a gun, and then they would clear the house. And yeah, I got shot quite a few times, which is good. And so then back to the decision. You've got to make a decision. Is it going to be a slow entry, or is it going to be a dynamic entry? If you hear screams and shots, it's going to be dynamic.
Yeah.
But that's the last place you want to go because you're playing into their strength.
Right.
They want you to come busting through that door, Hollywood style, ready, guns a-blazing, and that's where you're going to take two to the head. So you've got to play it smart. With kids, they have to know what to do. You have to know what to do. But like I said, if you can get them out of the situation, that's the best way. Draw back, flank them, set up your own ambush, control the situation.
It's kind of funny. One of my military operative friends, I won't say his name for his own protection, he's a father of 3. And when I was visiting him probably almost a decade ago, his kids were younger. They're now all entering college because they're close together, and the last one's a super smarty pants. So he skipped 2 grades. But they were all little kids a decade ago. And he's loves his firearms. He's in the military, and he's a former ranger and just hooah. So tough guy, but he's like, I don't have to engage. He goes, all I have to do is shoot out a window with my shotgun and yell, call 911, the bodies are dropping. And police respond a lot faster when there's already a shot fired. And he goes, my kids know where to go, what to do. As soon as they hear that shot, they all instinctually do the same thing. And he's like, I've trained them. He's like, bullets go through walls. That's a problem. You don't want to be running around. So they're all trained to crawl to the egress point, crawl to the safety zone, and then get out. He's like, I drill my kids weekly, monthly. He's like,
Wow,
they're
excellent.
all drilled, so they know what they need to do. Have they ever had a problem? No. But if something happens, they know what to do.
It's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it.
Absolutely. And now that I've got a little tiny precious little baby, it's on.
Get her trained
I've
immediately.
I've got her. I'm teaching her now how to walk. The next
There you
phase
go. That's
is
the first step. You
how
gotta
to
walk,
get
right?
back down and crawl to safety.
Urban assault stroller.
Yeah. So the baby pack with the bulletproof vest on the outside for her. I don't know. We got to figure that still, but it's so imperative that I, with my kids and anyone that has kids, to take the time to teach your kids what you need to do in all situations, and not just the shooting situations. It needs to be fire drills,
yeah.
power goes
Earthquake
out,
drill.
run through every type of drill, earthquakes, duck, turtle, cover and grab on, and there's strategies. Get to the triangle space, but there's so many things that people aren't doing. When a fire alarm goes off in somebody's house, and I'm there, I'll immediately work towards an exit and grab the people that are with me, and they're like, "Oh, it's just this," and I'm like, "Okay, well, be alert, be awake, tell people," but then their kids will be up in their room turn that off. What's going on? It's like, well, no, you need to know what that is and why it goes off. And if you're taught that, everyone can respond, find out if it's an issue or not. If it's not, go back to your business, but first respond. Office scenarios. Man, I used to work in this office with 1,000 people, and every time an alarm would go off, oh, come on, what's going on? This is interrupting my day. And it's like, what if it's a real fire? What if it's a real situation?
Here's the thing that I just want to pop in real quick. We used to do a lot of tabletops. I got my certification with Homeland Security way back when. The thing is we do these tabletops. You have to start to think like the bad guys. And so, so many times we do fire drills and we all just go marching faithfully out in the line right outside. Don't forget to observe what's going on. That, yes, you're following, even with the fire drills, any terrorist can hit a fire alarm, stand outside the building and wait for you to come single file out the door. I mean, he doesn't have to go walking around through the building killing people. He has you come out to him. So once again, be observant where you're going. And when you go out to your muster places where you gather together, you need to have training on, okay, is this a real fire drill? Is this a real fire?
Is there a secondary threat?
Yes, and what else is going to happen? So a lot of terrorists they'll have a bomb go off, and that's just the first bomb, and as soon as the first responders show up, that's when the second bomb goes
That's when they do
off.
stuff. Well, Stan, thank you so much for being with us. We're out of time. Go to urbansurvivors.com. Check him out. Come to his classes on Wednesdays up in
Clearfield.
Clearfield.
Oh, Clearfield.
Awesome. Go to the website. You'll find out more information. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next week at Prepper Talk Radio here on K-Talk, AM 1640.